and the curtain rises on a vast, primitive wasteland, not unlike certain parts of Kansas. Trust me, I lived there. But tonight, we are not in the Midwest, far from it. We find ourselves at the bottom of the MLS table. This is the Deadland. This is Cactus Land. Here, the stone images are raised. Here, they receive the supplication of a dead man's hand under the twinkle of a fading star. Whoa, wait a minute, wait a minute. The season's not over yet, and I can't just let T.S. Eliot creep back into my consciousness like this. I did that throughout my entire, 4 years of college. You know what I need? I need a cold drink and some good friends. Let's get into it.
You're tuned into news across the galaxy where they talk all things LA Galaxy with the Nag Boys. Let's start nagging.
Good evening to you, wherever you may be, and welcome to News Across the Galaxy, the midweek show, coming to you live from the state-of-the-art NAG Studio Submarine, currently located at the very bottom of the MLS table. I'm your host, Edgar Zuniga, with my NAG, Brochacho, on the ones and twos, Bryant Lobos. That's the sound I'm going to hear as I'm being lowered into my grave. On tonight's show, we are going to have a very special episode. We have reached the halfway point of the MLS season, and LA Galaxy finally won a match. And we celebrated like we were heading the MLS Cup, baby. After going on a club and then MLS record 16-match winless streak to begin the 2025 season, Galaxy find himself so far down in the table that vaudeville villain himself, Sasha Kleshin, found the courage to vow to shave his hair and mustache if Galaxy somehow makes the playoffs. While LA Galaxy has dug the deepest hole in MLS history, you'll be surprised that we're not alone. Welcome to the Wooden Spoon Collective, which some may call a group pod, but it's actually a therapy session. Introducing first, a Western Conference friend from Flyover Footy, covering St. Louis City SC. You might remember him as Matt Big Bird Baker. What's up, Matt?
What's up, Edgar?
Next, from Scarves and Spikes, covering Atlanta United FC, please give a warm welcome to Rene Higuita Jr. Henry. I said Rene. That's how you know we're live. Yay!
Close enough, bro. Close enough. We'll take it.
Bienvenido, Henry. ¿Cómo estás? Bienvenido.
No, muchas
Lastly, eventually, if you see that dark corner right there, like next to Henry, in the corner, kind of, if you look there hard enough, you might see making their NAG debut, coming at us eventually from the frozen north, covering CF Montreal. It's the guys from the Ballers Round podcast. Can we get some crickets for them? Because, they'll be here eventually, I guess. Bonne nuit, mes amis. Well, good evening, my friends, and welcome to the Wooden Spoon Collective. What else can we call this group, right? Are we all vying for an MLS Cup at this point?
I think we're all vying for promotion out of this.
Yeah, it's I listen to you guys' pods on a weekly basis, and I listen to what you guys have to say, and I'm like, damn, everybody's really down on their clubs. I know I've been on Scarves and Spikes a few times to give you guys some words of encouragement, and just reminding you that things could be worse, a lot worse. And damn, it got to the point where LA Galaxy fans are pretty numb at this point. Like every time you lose, eventually you get used to the pain, and then it's just you're like, all right, whatever. But then we won, and then suddenly everybody's like, "That's it, boys. This is what we needed. Let's go, playoffs. Here we come." And then you have somebody like Sasha Kleshin saying, "Sit your ass down. You have no reason to be talking." But it's Sasha, right? Who was a really important member of the LA Galaxy at one point, and has gone regressed back to his Chivas USA days as a villain. Anyway, guys, like I said, welcome to the show. Matt, how you been?
Oh, we've been better in the St. Louis side. Personally, I'm doing all right, I guess. We have a new coach, and so things are we're trying to trick ourselves into being as positive as possible right now. But overall, it's all right.
What about you, Henry? I know that things have been kind of strange over there in Atlanta. You guys came in with so much promise. I know that the team spent like was it MLS record, right? 51 was it $51 million or something like that, or how much was it?
It was something to the tune of like 50 million in
Yeah.
total. We had two open DP slots, a new manager, a new uh, chief soccer officer. I felt like we were reloaded, and we're back, baby, and we beat the MLS transfer record again. Oh boy, this is a big season. Everyone's predicting us to be top of the East. Here we go, and now we're in 12th. So you know, it could be better. It could be worse. We had a two-game winning streak going, which was nice until we went to Red Bull Arena. I'm sorry, Sports Illustrated Stadium, where we've literally never won a game. So it could be worse. But hey, the good news is Atlanta United cannot lose this weekend.
Yay! Same here.
Let's
Yay!
go!
High five.
High five, buddy.
Yeah, for a second there, because I was trying to set up the Wooden Spoon Collective for like a couple weeks now, and because I was chatting with Tommy and Tyler, and I saw you guys win a couple matches, and I was like, I don't know, man, you guys are on the verge of being kicked out of the clubhouse, but then you guys, regress back to form, and I was like, okay, come here, man, it's okay, just pull up a seat and let's have a nice little chat. Um, But before we get into all the woes that have assailed our teams this season, let's look at the MLS landscape. Let's look at what's going on because a lot happened in the last few days. Um, First of all, the reaction from everyone to seeing Vancouver crumble like that against Cruz Azul because um, Vancouver, I think, falls into that weird area where like nobody really dislikes them. Even like Portland and Seattle fans, who are they have that fierce rivalry. Even them, they're like, they're like the little brother. We don't really hate them. They're just there. Maybe once in a while they become a nuisance to them, but overall, everybody feels pretty good about Vancouver. They're having a fantastic season and so much promise. So much steam heading into this final against Cruz Azul, and they dispatched all these strong Mexican teams on the way there, and then, oh my God, what was that? What was that, Matt?
It was embarrassing, is what it was. I mean, you had all the hope in the world that Vancouver, in their massive ability to handle fixture congestion and their ability to handle injuries and their nonstop attack, no matter what happens, they could miss Ryan Gauld and they're not skipping a beat. Suddenly, just stopped in their tracks. I don't even think they recorded a shot in this entire game. They had like 30% possession. It wasn't the Vancouver Whitecaps we were used to seeing in 2025. That's for sure.
Henry, is there anything that Vancouver can get from this? Like maybe some kind of moral victory or lesson from this? Because you make it so far, and we've seen MLS teams get there and they struggle. Hold on. Answer that boy. See what's going on.
Well, I'll answer your question real quick while we're on the air. About this game specifically, I don't really think there's a positive for Vancouver. I mean, it was over before the end of the first half, even. And so it was a very hard watch from, an MLS perspective. But I did write about this for MLS in Spanish and a little bit about just kind of the overall lessons learned, because this is another game of harsh lessons for the Whitecaps and for MLS in general about this kind of rivalry that they have going on with the Liga MX. And it's a healthy rivalry. It's a necessary rivalry because it pushes both leagues to be at their best. But I just think Vancouver wasn't really ready for the occasion. It was their first major final. I mean, before that, it was just Canadian championships. This is a whole nother level, man. I mean, you're staring down qualification to the next Club World Cup, to Intercontinental Cup, suddenly being the second MLS team to win this iteration of the tournament. It's huge. And they just weren't ready for the occasion, which is a shame because, again, they've been doing very well elsewhere. And that takes me to my next point. which is you still have the season, right? Right now, you've established yourself as a very strong Supporters Shield contender. You are, I think, a couple points behind leading Philadelphia, but you also have like 2 games in hand. So you've got that going for you. And at this point, you're also a strong MLS Cup contender. So it's a bummer to lose that big a game, but at the same time, you've got a lot of stuff to look forward to.
I think for me, the thing that's going to bother me the most about this is that you're going to keep hearing the same from Liga MX fans, which is like MLS is a lower product of the game. You know, MLS is still far below where Liga MX is, and in some respects, it is. Obviously, we saw how much Liga MX spent to bring in some talent right before the season began, like for example, James. And so I think Liga MX is responding to what MLS is doing. MLS brought in Messi, and they're trying to attract a lot of other names that aren't necessarily towards the end of their careers. And so Liga MX is like kind of responding and also at the same time saying, hey, we're not going to let MLS just run away with this. You know, we're still the dominant force here in CONCACAF in this region of the world, and but then you see a game like this, and you kind of have to kind of shrug and say, well, I guess so. Uh, I don't know what to say about it because I feel like I feel Vancouver's better than that, and they just caught them on a bad day, and that's just hard. But moving on, because from the CONCACAF Championship, we're moving on to the Club World Cup. And as many of you saw this week, Seattle Sounders players came out to practice wearing Club World Cup cash grab T-shirts with Mr. Monopoly there. I forgot his name, but a little Monopoly guy there carrying a little FIFA cash bag. And Matt, you were mentioning that it did not go over so smoothly over there, right? Their owner went nuts.
Yeah, their owner addressed them in the locker room by all reports, and I've never heard an MLS team do something that causes the owner to go down and more or less berate their team or chastise them for embarrassing him or putting forth a bad name. And it's even less. I guess I can't also remember a time where you had this organized protest, and I've considered myself following the league for a fair amount of time, but you often have, I would say, individual times. I remember Alejandro Bedoya grabbing a mic at one point a few years ago, and that was a form of a protest, but it really doesn't ring a bell where you have this large scale protest by an entire team. Everybody's on board, and especially a pre-match warm-up type situation where we know how guarded MLS is with their pre-match tops and all these really polished things that they like to go into with their pre-match kits and very, very much a refined product. And so to have this come out and to obviously be a dig at what MLS is paying their players basically, or allowing them to make for representing in the Club World Cup, the biggest stage that FIFA has ever created for club teams, it's noteworthy. And I think it made a splash globally that one of the qualifying teams is kind of fed up with what they're not being paid they feel they're worth. And I think it was even more noteworthy, and the owner of their club probably had a Streisand effect type thing, where this only added to the spotlight that was put on the team, as opposed to doing something more behind closed doors, where the players had said, we tried to take avenues behind closed doors. We felt this was more of a last resort. So it's just fascinating to see this unfold on the cusp of this giant tournament.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was a reaction to this, but we also saw that the Club World Cup, FIFA reportedly slashed prices for the June 14th opener that's being hosted by Inter Miami. Uh, I don't know how that's going to bode because I'm going to speak, I'm going to speak on the real. Like, I've been a lifelong Dodgers fan. And when I was younger, when I was in a high school allowance, I could afford to go to like 20 games a season. These days prices are so high for a Dodger game. I have not been to a Dodgers game in 3 years, and they won the World Series last year, which means that you pretty much have to like sacrifice a kidney or a piece of your liver to to go to a game. And um, it kind of feels like that when you're leaving the stadium. You're like, oh, that hurt, right? My wallet. But hey, at least you got to see the Dodgers, and it was never like that before. And but you look around at the other sports options, and it's very expensive. A lot of people ask me, well, how can you afford being a Galaxy season ticket holder, to be honest, is what I pay for my season tickets in LA Galaxy would get me like maybe like second level for a Lakers game for the like for one game for what I pay the entire season, and it's like that's crazy. So I feel like LA Galaxy is a great discount for me. Not a great discount. It's a great offer for me, right? To have. I can't say no, and I love the team, so it's a no brainer. But it makes me wonder how things are going to be when the World Cup itself does come around. One of my dreams has always been to take my son, who's going to be 6 at that point, take him to the World Cup. I know it would be a great memory for him, a core memory, but now I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if I'll be able to afford that. Henry, I mean, where do we go from here? Because I know Atlanta is known for having very affordable prices for food and drink. How is it at the stadium itself? Do fans feel welcome there? And do you think that FIFA can learn any lessons from the way that Atlanta runs the team?
Well, let me say this first. Mercedes-Benz Stadium, it never gets old. We're there covering the team every game that they have, every home game. We're there, and it just never gets old. Even though the team's performance has kind of caused a decline in attendance, which that's unfortunate, but it's still a fun place to be. And I think, like you said, one of the really cool parts about it is the more affordable concession prices. You could get stuff for like waters, I believe, are like $1 or $2. Like hot dogs, you can get for like 4 or 5. It's super like that's the really cool thing about it, and so it makes the experience of being a fan a lot better. As far as entry to games, that's a whole nother matter, I think. And I think it depends a little bit more on the tournament. And the Club World Cup is obviously a major tournament, and the World Cup is the biggest tournament that there is. And so I haven't really looked into the prices of those, but I wouldn't be surprised if they'll be big, especially with some of the games that are going to be hosted there for some of these tournaments. And so I definitely think there's a model to be followed in terms of your concessions prices, your fan gear that's sold, the apparel that is sold inside the stadium, trying to make that as accessible as possible to fans, because, the more you make that happen, the more that, these guys are fans are going to appreciate your stadium, that they're going to remember that they're going to be back. That stands true a lot more so for clubs, I would say, like Atlanta United. And also the cool thing about Mercedes-Benz Stadium is that it's a very sustainable stadium. Like they grow a lot of their stuff on site. Like they have a garden in like on the stadium campus that they get most of their food from. So that's a really cool thing that they do, and that helps keep the prices down. And they have a lot of other things that I don't have on me right now at the moment, but they do a lot of cool stuff to cut back on prices and it improves the experience for fans.
Well, I don't know if FIFA is going to do anything about it, but knowing how strange and weird they run things, I don't know, man. It's going to be hard. Well, moving on from that, which is kind of dour, to something that's really good, which I'm sure came like mana from the sky. We just heard the news yesterday that Chicago Fire is moving forward with plans for a new stadium, and it's to me like an MLS sicko from since '96. Whenever I hear news that any MLS team is getting their own stadium, to me that is amazing. It's amazing news, especially for a team like Chicago, who has been stuck in the cavernous Soldier Field. Which I mean, it is it really Soldier Field anymore? Does it look like the classic Soldier Field? It's like people say it looks like a spaceship crash landed on top of Soldier Field. Matt, I know you chuckled about it, right? Because St. Louis and Chicago, right? The rival cities, rivals in sports. But you mentioned something fantastic that's going to be great for St. Louis fans if, no, not if, when they erect that new stadium, right?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that the Chicago Fire are finally getting a new stadium, and it's SeatGate 2.0 essentially, like it's a new run at it. It's in basically a downtown adjacent part of Chicago. It's the promise that I bet every Chicago Fire fan had been hoping for since their inception. They're finally getting with it. on the heels of New York finally getting a stadium. So all bets are off on every single possibility that could exist and things you never thought that would happen. Downtown Queens, New York, I think it is, getting a stadium. Now basically downtown Chicago getting a soccer specific stadium, and it's privately financed. So as much as I like to dog on Chicago, and I am full in on hating everything that they do as part of the rivalry, because in other sports, yeah, I hate the Cubs. I'm not a Bears fan. We never really had football. I'm not a Blackhawks fan by any sense of the imagination. All of it's awful, but I have to give credit to the ownership of the Fire here. They're doing right by their city, and it's going to make for a better rivalry, not just with St. Louis, but really anybody. Minnesota, Nashville. Trains are going to be accessible finally. It's going to be a really perfect away day, I think, for St. Louis fans to be able to go up there on this South Loop, I think 20 minutes from the Navy Pier area in Chicago. And it's going to be kind of a beautiful development from all the images and everything you see. It's what the Fire fans have honestly deserved, objectively speaking, and it's going to make for some fantastic away days when it actually happens. I think it's not going to be completed for another few years, 28, maybe something like that. But it's good to see it finally happen, and it's good to see the Fire have an actual owner who's willing to back up everything that they've said for so long, because quality owners in MLS are sometimes hard to come by, so you have to appreciate one whenever they actually do what they have. They walk the walk. They walk the talk here, and I can't appreciate that.
Yeah, and if you're talking about quality owners, of course, I think of Arthur Blank. I think he's a fantastic owner. The way he treats Atlanta, he doesn't consider them subordinate to the Falcons. He's always treated them an
Mhm.
equal footing, and it's something you have to respect. Um, by the way, some details on the Chicago Fire news is that we've been hearing about how the Bears are trying to find a new home, and they've been very weird, very ambivalent about where they're going to be going. And then the Chicago White Sox, who could have had a nice stadium, but they built something that was just very plain, and they've tried their best to recreate the magic that was Comiskey Park. If you've never seen Comiskey Park, if you're not a baseball fan like that, go check it out. Just a beautiful old timey stadium, a jewel box stadium, and I did meet somebody online on Twitter sphere who is a designer and architect, and he said that he had come up with a design that would harken to like the yesteryears of old Comiskey, and he said he had actually presented this plan to the White Sox. I'm not sure how far he got with that, but the White Sox and the Bears have both been asking for public funding, right,
Mhm.
taxes and all that. But then here comes Chicago Fire. They're like, we're gonna pay for this, and no public funding needed. uh, that's amazing, right, guys?
It
Uh,
makes the other teams look terrible. And also in Missouri here, we're kind of going through something similar where out in Kansas City, the Royals and the Chiefs are trying to squeeze as much money out of the public funds as possible with the legislature. And there's this big back and forth in Missouri going on about state funds being used to keep the Royals and the Chiefs on the Missouri side, and St. Louis taxpayers having to be a part of that because we're in Missouri. So when you start talking about public funds, things start to get really messy. And especially with sports teams, there's a massive landscape now where it's just complete anti-public funds across the board. And that's another thing for this that's really a credit to the Fire is Joe Mansueto steps in and he's saying $650 million privately financed. We're going to get this done. And everybody just has to tip the cap.
I obviously, I mean, and I love when teams do this, like Henry. I know that in Atlanta, one of the wonderful things that United has done was those little small footy pitches, right at the metro stations. Have you heard about that, Matt? I think it's
Yeah.
such fantastic. Like whether you're on the way to the game, whether you're just traveling through town, and hey, hey, you could kick the ball around a little, just relax there, Henry. How did that come about? Was it something that the team proposed to the city, or was it something like a joint effort? Because I don't know much about it. I just heard about it. Tell me about it.
It is a community effort, and I'm struggling to remember the name of it, but it is an effort to build kind of around not just the city, but the metro area, which is it encompasses several neighborhoods. Uh, I know there was one that was opened recently in McDonough, which is where Tyler Pilgrim, a fellow uh, host of Scarves and Spikes, where he lives. You know, and just all around the metro area. The MARTA Station one is very, very famous, and you have pickup games there. You have when the Premier League Summer Series was here a couple of years ago, and Newcastle and Brentford and some of these other Premier League clubs were in town, they actually went and visited one of those pitches for one of their events, and it's really cool that they're promoting soccer, and also that has to a lot of credit has to go to Arthur Blank. He has been at the forefront of growing the game here in Atlanta over the past several years. I mean, from owning Atlanta United to the $50 million contribution that he did for the U.S. soccer training center that is going up in Fayetteville, uh, and just everything he has done to kind of grow the soccer landscape here. I mean, he's awesome to have, and him having Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and he's been at the forefront of making that affordable and a fan experience. I think the really cool story there is that he became an owner of Atlanta United. He founded it because of his son Josh Blank, who's actually the one that's going to be taking over once Arthur decides to retire. And so it's really cool that they have that story and that they really care about the soccer. And it's helped bring these big events. I mean, we're talking about Copa America was here last year. Club World Cup is here this year. And then the FIFA World Cup is going to be here next year. And all of this happens because Atlanta has grown as a soccer city, as a hub for soccer. That's what everyone talks about, right? I was talking this morning to the Manchester City head of football development, and he told me, yeah, they're having soccer camps here in Atlanta because this has become such a hub for soccer in the United States. And you see it from Atlanta United games where they're filling up that stadium. We're talking about playoffs last year where Atlanta was a huge underdog, but they fill out the stadium, and it's super loud, and the fan base that's just so passionate, even when the team is honestly very mediocre right now. So no, it's awesome that we are very fortunate to have the soccer landscape we have, and a large part of that is due to Arthur Blank and his efforts.
Well, I'd like to finally welcome our buddies from the Balls Round Montreal making their NAG debut. They finally made it all the way down in the bottom of the table. Because, like I said, we're here in the state of the art NAG Studio Submarine. Please give a warm welcome to Andy Coronado. Bonne nuit, mes amis.
Hey guys, how's it going? Thank you for having us. I recognize some of the faces here. That we've spoken before, so thank you so much for having us. It's nice to be part of the bottom, I guess, and have friends to be there with. I mean, the way, if I'm not being honest, the way I explained this to my wife that I was doing tonight, I told her. So they decided to do a podcast of the teams that are being the worst in the league. And she was like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, we're just all getting together, the ones that really suck." And she was like, "That's hilarious, but that's a great idea." So here we are.
Hey,
And I apologize for being late. I do apologize.
no, it's fine. We know that traffic in Montreal must be insane, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. That's pretty
As
bad.
long as you brought some poutine, we're good.
Yes.
I actually did. Not here.
There you go. Magnifique.
Yeah.
So the old saying, heavy crown lays, right? I mean, on the king, whatever. And I
Yeah.
mean,
We
in,
still
in
have
the
a
case of
monarch. We still have a monarchy here in Canada. So yeah.
well, I mean, yeah, you do. A lot of people forget that, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember, like one time, we had some. I was at a Kings game, LA Kings, and we had some Vancouver fans over. And Vancouver Canucks fans can get kind of annoying. And I remember some lady told some Canucks fans like, "Hey, I wouldn't talk about you. You guys still have the queen on your bills, and you still like bow your bend the knee to them." And they got so mad. They're like, "Oh no, we don't." Blah, blah, blah. But hey, Andy, welcome. I was gonna say, heavy the crown lies on the champs, but hey, it was so heavy it sunk us all the way to the bottom, and now we're stuck in under this wooden spoon, which is a lot heavier. It's like Thor's hammer, man. Like, if anyone of you guys wants to take it, please, you're more than welcome to. Um, Andy, right before you came in, we were talking about Chicago Fire's new stadium, and we
Yeah.
were talking about how like the importance of having ownership that really cares about your team. We see it with St. Louis, we see it with Atlanta. I guess you kind of see it, with Phil Anschutz and LA Galaxy. He shows up here and there, but tell us what's going on with Joey Saputo. right? Because I know some fans have been upset with him and the things that have been going on over there. Um, as far as the stadium is concerned, we I know in the past you guys have had some games that you play in Olympic Stadium, and but is Saputo Stadium, has it run its course? Do you think the CF Montreal needs something new, or are they just stuck there at this point?
Well, look, I mean, you've touched on a few points, right? So Joey Saputo. When we talk about Joey Saputo, I mean, it's kind of a funny story because he's kind of taken, I guess, a leave from the team, and so it's been very hard to, necessarily, know the temperature of what he's feeling and how invested he is in the in CF Montreal. Um, I mean, look, recently this year or these past years, his children, his kids, Lucas Saputo as well as Simone Saputo have kind of been put in charge of the team, and that to a lot of fans and media coverage is a sign of good things coming soon. And when I say soon, I don't mean tomorrow. I don't mean next game. I probably mean next season. We've had a very, very bad start to the season. I mean, right there with you, Edgar, we're in the bottom, and it just, yeah, Joey Saputo, like he recently gave an interview in Italian, not even in English or French, in Italian, and he said that he was very disappointed at the support that the city of Montreal had given to him, and the way that the club had kind of like disappointed him and all that. It sounded like he was very hurt by his time here. Um, but lo and behold, he's still very, very invested in the team, and it shows that. As far as the stadium goes, like the president Gabriel Gervais was recently asked about this, and he said that he can't really make an official statement. The team can't make an official statement on what's going to happen with Stade Olympique or Olympic Stadium, uh, unless the Olympic Stadium gives CF Montreal a clear plan as to what's going to happen. So there hasn't been, both sides are kind of mum about what's going to happen in the future, and obviously, it's a big question mark for a lot of fans in CF Montreal, where they say, okay, well, what kind of ambitions does this club have? They want to win games. They want to win the Canadian Championship. They say they want to win the Canadian Championship, but at the same time, if they do win this Canadian Championship, they end up going next year to the CONCACAF. But where are they gonna play? Because the Stade Saputo is not winterized for cold games. So what's going to be the away and home for CF Montreal? So it's a lot of question marks, and kind of unsettling in that sense. But it does look, if I can maybe add on to that, it does look positive that the kids are very present. I was actually at practice this morning for CF Montreal, very, very hot day, and his kids today was just Simone Saputo. I didn't see Luca, but Simone was there, and he's very much in charge of the academy, of the CF Montreal Academy, and he's very present, and they're watching everything every day. Every day they're getting their hands dirty with the team. So, yeah, I think that pretty much covers the thing you asked. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. I was gonna say the sun finally comes out in Montreal, and you're like, oh my god, it's so hot, right?
Uh, just last week, it was cold. Honestly, it was really, really cold. But
Oh,
today,
okay,
pure miracle, it's really hot, and yeah, I even got a little
okay.
tan. And
Man, watch it be like somewhere like in the 60s, right? For
yeah,
us, right? I don't know what that is in centigrade, but
me neither.
sounds like a nice cool day. Um, yeah, we were going over some other MLS stuff, but taking a little bit of turn from MLS, something cool is going on right now. Right? It's the soccer tournament TST, which began like a couple years ago as something kind of like an experiment. And I remember I took notice of it because I'm a big Mike McGee fan. Mike McGee, a former Galaxy player, is my favorite Galaxy player of all time, which is funny, right? Because so many amazing players have come to this team, and my boy is Mike McGee, right? And he put together a team to go into this tournament. I hadn't heard, which I think it's still played in Cary, North Carolina. My wife's from there, which is interesting. She's from, she grew up in North Carolina, so I know exactly where they're playing. Um, and this tournament has gotten so much attention. Now there's international teams there. Wrexham has a team. Club America has a team. Boca Juniors has a team there. And then you have whoever can put together a team, and you got the funding. Pat McAfee has a team, right? Um, I'm gonna start with you, Matt. What are your thoughts on the TST, and do you think it's something that's gonna continue to build momentum as years pass?
I kind of hope so. I think you get a mixture of big names that people know, crazy non-soccer related folks, and it's just a fun tournament. I mean, it has no semblance in the like hardcore analytics. It's just go out there, have fun, and see how crazy it can get. And that's kind of a niche part that I don't think a lot of soccer fans or sports fans in America really appreciate about soccer is it can be this wild type thing. It can be more of a pickup style game, and airing on, I think, ESPN now, it gives it a little wider of an audience. And so you pull in folks who are past their prime, obviously, globally. On the women's side as well, you've got Hope Solo and some other legacy women stars. I mean, big names that we know and love, but also I think permeate into the larger sports landscape in America. And I think this is an opportunity to draw eyes to soccer. The question I really have is is it just for fun? I mean, is this really going to do anything for soccer in America? And I guess to me, that's kind of where a lot of the questions come back to with this kind of thing is like, what's the end goal for this? Is it just to have fun? Because that's cool. I mean, let's let them just have fun and let's keep this tournament going. And people are coming in and we're recruiting people who are recently retired, or they're putting together a group of friends. If you have like Sergio Aguero come in, and I mean, it's a fun thing. I don't know that we can look for it to really be anything more than just a super fun thing that might spark some interest, especially among kids. Of this soccer thing is actually really cool. Maybe I should learn more about it, and then eventually it parlays into wanting to play soccer. And then at that point, that's really the end goal: is you get more people playing soccer in America, and it all kind of grows from there.
Andy, I know you just came in, but have you heard about the soccer tournament TST?
I haven't, but I mean, look. At the end of the day, just I don't have that much to say about it. But similar to what Matt said, it's really any opportunity to expand soccer and to give either older or younger people the experience to play more soccer. Well, obviously, we're talking about the United States, but in Canada as well. Recently, I'll give you guys an example. Recently today, there was another rumor by a very good source that said that there might be another soccer team of a lower league being added to Montreal, which is huge news. And again, it goes with that same idea of expanding, you know, giving more opportunities for people to play soccer and expanding to different crowds and all that can maybe that prefer seeing that kind of level or whatnot. And it's very interesting. I think any opportunity, any program, will it work? Will it finally end up paying off whatever it is that they originally intended to do? That remains to be seen, right? We've seen that happen in American football, in the NFL, XFL, and other leagues that they've created that folded, that didn't work out the way they wanted it to be. But to some extent, I mean, I'm sure you guys see it all the time, right? In YouTube, there's like clips here and there that you can see of old leagues that folded, but that had like really funny tackles and really funny like clips or whatever. It did something to the sport. So I guess that's what I had to say about that.
And you also have some pretty cool stories too. Like there's this one group in St. Louis, Dueling for Lincoln. There was this team, this group of friends who some of them are former indoor soccer players. There's a couple of former USL guys, but it's just a bunch of friends basically who got together and formed a team based on one of the founders' unfortunate incident of having their son have childhood leukemia, and he passed away. And so they formed this nonprofit and this soccer team based on that, and they took him into this tournament. And they had kind of a mini Cinderella run last season. So there's all kinds of stories that come from this, and I think it's just a fun watch.
Yeah, it's awesome. I feel like it kind of has the same spirit as the U.S. Open Cup, except that it's more of like a carnival feel to it,
Yeah.
kind of an experience. Um, so I know, Matt, your time is limited here, so let's get into the nitty gritty, guys, because we're all here for a reason, right? But
We
it's
suck.
funny. We suck, yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, right, when the team sucks and somebody's looking for a pariah, right, or a scapegoat, they're like, who the hell, who's to blame for this? More often than not, we point at the coach, the manager, right, the man in charge, the gaffer. And I know on our group chat earlier this season, when I noticed things were kind of weird for Galaxy, I noticed things were kind of weird for the other teams. I was like, hey, who do you guys think is going to be the first guy, the first manager to get the axe? And I remember I said, I think it's going to be Peter Vermees. And then out of nowhere, Montreal's like, hold our poutine. Here we go. What happened, Andy?
I mean, what happened? I think we're all still asking ourselves the question, right? What happened with Laurent Courtois? I mean, the president came out and said it that after the second game of the season, they had already started thinking about firing him, and then that left a lot of fans completely shocked. And then I don't want to say, when I say shocked, I don't want people to think that, oh, it's because the fans loved Laurent Courtois. It's not true. People were already very skeptical about his results and what he was doing, but at the end of the day, um, there was still a lot of doubt as to whether he was capable. But people still wanted, a lot of people forget that Montreal had 7 games on the road to start the season. So a lot of people wanted to give Laurent Courtois in his second season a benefit of the doubt of at least having some home games to really see if maybe he can do something with that kind of energy. And lo and behold, CF Montreal president and the organization decided not to go through with it, and that was very disappointing. And yeah, so that's what happened. If that's what you're asking, it's very strange, and
Yeah, and then shortly after that, the man himself, Sauron, he's up in his tower there. Peter Vermees, got kicked out by a bunch of hobbits and, a half-eaten, Smeagol there, and he's gone, right? And then we're like, whoa, who else is next? And then Matt, what the heck, man? I mean, this team hasn't been around that long, and it's like a revolving door. What's going on?
No more shorts on the sidelines.
Revolving door of sorts. I'm
Oh,
looking.
and Matt, and while you're talking, we also want to address Adam's super chat because he's asked me a couple of weeks now. Adam, super chat. He asks. Okay. There you go. Edgar, did you go over the reason why the Galaxy always play during the daytime away in St. Louis? And I don't know, MLS just likes to have a laugh, but maybe Matt, you can give us some insight on that in addition to talking about the manager.
100%. I can tell you right now, it's because MLS knows the two biggest clubs in the entire league are the Galaxy and St. Louis, and they want to spotlight these two teams when nobody else is playing. Absolute, honest to God reason. I have that from perfect sources all over the place. Did not just totally make that up. But there's no other reason that makes sense. I mean, you come into St. Louis, it's not like MLS is going to say we're always going to put the Galaxy at a disadvantage time-wise because you're 2 hours behind us and you have to come in and play a day game. Like that, I don't think they hate you guys that much. So there obviously has to be a reason, and I think it's that the world wants to see Galaxy v City.
I guess.
And so tell us about the manager issue, because that was also a surprise, right?
Well, I suppose. Hiring, so you got to go back to the hiring of Olaf Melberg and understand what the purpose of his hiring was. So Olaf Melberg, I'm sure a lot of people know the name, Aston Villa legend, Swedish national team, Zlatan Ibrahimovic's best friend. They both get suspended together. Dude has a really, really strong history as a player. As a manager, he has much less of a footprint, much less of a resume, a pedigree outside of in the Swedish tier, earning some clubs promotion back to back to back, or back to back at least, with very little money to deal with. Very big academy that his clubs are working with. So you can kind of see some breadcrumbs of things that could potentially make sense in St. Louis. A penchant for growing the kids, playing the kids, dealing with a large academy, a penchant for doing more with less, which St. Louis is not a big spending club. Our ownership is, at least in the first few years, Marcel Hartl is our highest paid player at just over $2 million, and we had him on a free transfer. Joao Klaus is our highest paid DP as far as a transfer fee goes, and that was just over $3 million a few years ago. So we haven't splashed the cash, obviously. So Olaf Melberg comes in, and the idea is he's able to get the most out of these players with less, but still good quality in MLS terms. What happened, though, is instead of implementing the system that he was brought in here to play, which is similar to the Bradley Carnell style. I mean, it's the high pressing, it's the direct to goal, it's win the ball back as soon as you lose it type of a thing. It's not possess, it's not play the ball horizontally, it's not work the ball in dangerous areas. You just work the ball around like a Sporting KC or a Galaxy or Seattle. It's not like those teams. So Olaf Melberg comes in and he tries to implement more of a play the ball out of the back, possess the ball, be better skilled on the ball and be less direct, putting less numbers into the attacking third. Keep numbers behind the ball and allow you to play it up a little bit more. He did have the misfortune of a series of significant injuries over the course of a multiple weeks. So we lost at times half of our starting 11. But he also showed an unwillingness to change his formation, which didn't jive with his resume, where he had moved from 3 in the back to 4 in the back at almost every other game at times. He stayed with 3 in the back. He stayed with the same particular players, especially in the back line. And so we started the season pretty strong defensively, but we still couldn't score goals, couldn't create chances. And then it just we lost the defensive prowess. We didn't gain anything offensively. We just lost every defensive strength that we had. And we didn't change anything. We didn't try anything new. So yes, injuries were a concern and they were a problem that he had to deal with, but he was very rigid in what he wanted to do. And on top of that, instead of trying different lineups, trying different formations, trying different players, giving some kids an opportunity from City 2 even, what he instead said is the reason that he's playing the style he's playing, the reason that we're seeing this boring type of soccer is because the players on the team do not have the quality necessary to play the style he wants to implement. And I swear, honest to God, he said this in press conferences, multiple of them, early on in his tenure. When we asked him, why are you doing this? Or what's the idea behind playing the ball in your defensive third so often? When we brought out stats early in the season, he literally said early in the season that the players don't have the quality to do what he wants to implement. So he has to pivot this other way. And to his dying breath as manager of St. Louis City SC, as far as we understand from what our sporting director and GM are saying, he basically said that exact thing. Like, he was brought in saying, I want to play this style, but he always said he didn't have the quality to do that. And he never attempted a different group of people or shifting things around to attempt to try to find some semblance of quality. And I think it speaks volumes that the one match after he leaves, where, the new coach bounces a thing, when David Critchley takes over he was our City 2 manager, and now he takes over as our caretaker manager, which is a term they're using. The first thing he does is change players from taking our center mid, Chris Durkin, playing him as a center back, going back to a back four, and we win the game. In fact, we come from behind for the first time all season to win a game. So it just shows that the rigidness, the lack of creativity, and just the unwillingness to adapt in any sense of the imagination was ultimately Olaf Milberg's downfall.
Man, it's interesting listening to you talk about that because a lot of Galaxy fans, we've seen Greg Vanney take this team and obviously win an MLS Cup, but when we had Rob Ventimiglia from the Designated Pundits on here to preview the match against Red Bull, he said, Greg is the kind of manager that everything needs to be absolutely perfect for him and his team in order for things to work out. Players have to be healthy. It's very difficult for him to adjust and find the necessary personnel to keep the team going. And this season, with everything that happened with the Galaxy, like losing key players, which we knew was going to happen, and then we have a slate of injuries, and it just was impossible for him to find the right people. I don't know if he was to look at the right personnel or if he just wanted a certain system. But what we're noticing now is that the team is actually playing better because he's giving some of the younger players that have been kept on the sidelines finally give them an opportunity to come out, and they're hungry, they're very creative, and they're giving the team something different, a breath of fresh air that we haven't seen all year. And so, like Brian said, it sounds familiar. Henry, we talked about how much the team spent. When you went from Rob Valentino, who was like, rah, rah, let's go, boys, F everyone, blah, 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 to Ronnie Dela, right, who you guys mentioned on your pod, and every team he's been in, his exits have always come under scrutiny, right? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, we have had our contingent of dial out, folks. It's been a disappointing season, to say the least. I do a little segment before every game, and Andy knows this because he's been on, but I talked to the NYCFC folks before that game, and I asked them, at that point, Atlanta had only won one game from its first few games. We were like, okay, we're we've given this significant investment in the team, and we're not really seeing the goals, right? We're not really seeing what we were told in preseason. What can you tell us about Ronnie Dial as a manager? And he said this. He said he's going to piss you off before he, does anything. But that's kind of what also led them to their 2021 MLS Cup. So he's going to piss us off, and then he's going to do awesome things, which he's done very good at pissing us off, because this has been a very disappointing season for Atlanta United. We were told that this was going to be, oh yeah, Latte Lot, he's very fast. He's going to latch onto through balls. Alexei Miranchuk, who we signed from Atalanta last summer, and he didn't really hit the league on fire. He had a very mediocre kind of second half of the season of 2024, the games that he played. And now, okay, this is going to be his season. He's going to be the one feeding through balls to Latte Lot. And then, oh, Miggy's back. Like, this is the moment, right? And we've got this whole attack set up. And then they hit the field, and that never really came to fruition. Alexei Miranchuk started the season very, very disappointing. Up until very recently, he only had one goal. And that's not what you want from your number 10. And so the question became, what do you do? Okay, well, Miguel Almiron is kind of drifting in. He's not really staying in his position. So move him to the 10, see if that works, drop Miranchuk back. And that worked for a game. And then it didn't, because turns out, Miggy wasn't doing that great as well. He isn't the same player. Back in 2017, 2018, he was awesome because he was fast, and he was very, very much more a creative player, right? He could blow past defenders with ease. He could beat them with pace, but now he's 31. He can't do that anymore. And so he's not as dynamic as he was before. He's not the same player. And frankly, he's been very underwhelming this season. And I've gotten some flack from Atlanta United fans, because they're like, oh, how could you criticize Miggy? How could you say this about him? Like, he hasn't really done much this season. He scored a penalty goal, a couple tap-ins that were almost accidental. I mean, other than that, he hasn't done much to justify being a designated player on this roster. And one of our guys, Tyler, he keeps saying, like, oh, yeah, Miggy is a top 3 winger in MLS. I'm like, no, dude. I'm sorry. Right now, he is nowhere close to that. And I think one of the funnier interactions, going back to Ronnie Dyla earlier this season, when I asked him, like, okay, you have 2 players that can play the number 10, right? In Alexi and in Miggy. And he kind of stopped me. He's like, how many times in his life has Miggy played the 10? I'm like, huh? Well, we all kind of stopped there, because we're like, 2017, 2018. And then he's like, where? Like, here. And so it was a very weird interaction, but at the end of the day, Miggy isn't even producing in that position. So I kind of understand where he's coming from. He's played in the Premier League as a winger mostly. And so you got him for that, and he isn't really executing. But the good news is you had a couple of games, the Cincinnati game and the Orlando game, you managed to get wins. Those kind of elevated a little bit the morale. But the thing is, right, you have an article coming out from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, I want to say a few weeks ago, about a month ago, with Garth Lagerwey, the CEO, where he said basically, yeah, Ronnie is safe. Like, he's not going anywhere this season. And you understand part of his reasoning. He said, like, yeah, this team has gone through managers, an insane amount of managers in a short amount of time, and that's not good for stability. I understand that. At the same time, the results right now aren't very good, and they kind of want to build the team around really what Ronnie wants. And frankly, some of the players aren't delivering that. We speculate that was one of the reasons that Xande Silva was traded, was because he really didn't fit into exactly what Ronnie Dyla wanted. And these past few games, you started to see that a little bit kind of develop a little bit more. You've kind of started to see the identity that Ronnie Dyla had at NYCFC of, okay, we're going to build off of defensive solidity. We're going to keep our attackers forward, and we're going to spring forward as fast as we can, right? We're going to go in transition, and that's how we're going to get goals. And it's worked for a couple of games. Obviously, the last game didn't work out because Miguel Almiron assisted the wrong team. But that's the other thing is the mistakes,
Own
the
goals,
very
baby.
stupid mistakes, man, that this team makes. It
Let me
shoots
tell
itself in
you.
the foot so
Oh my god.
often, and it's
You want to talk
frustrating.
about stupid
Yeah.
mistakes?
Hey,
Let's talk about Montreal.
say his
Hey,
name
Tyler,
and he appears.
What's up,
how much of
I
Jerry?
that did you
believe in
hear?
Tyler Pilgrim. What's up,
Coming in
Tyler?
and talking garbage about maybe Serbia and the ball on the air. How dare you?
Hey, Tyler, welcome to the bottom of the sea, man. By the way, speaking of bottom of the sea, I know Andy had a question to ask the group. Just announced today the LA Galaxy is going to have SpongeBob night,
Let's
like in July, which
What a joke.
I mean, wow. I mean, anything to get the kids to come up to the stadium. I mean, I don't know if they're gonna have like a halftime performance like the Bubble Bowl, because that would be awesome. That would be worth the price of admission. But Tyler, thank you for joining us, man. It's always nice to have Scarves and Spikes in here. Um, Andy, you said you wanted to ask the group a question,
Yeah,
man. Go
man.
ahead.
And y'all don't have to focus on me. I want to see your reaction while I ask this question, okay? Because CF Montreal, when we come into a season, we know that if ever we're even going to make it to the playoffs, it's going to be nice to be there because we are such a low spending team, and they don't spend too much on DPs or anything. And so if ever they do make it, it's a nice fight like they did last year when Caden Clark and Joseph Martinez figured it out. But I want to ask you guys, because Edgar, LA Galaxy were champs last year, right? Killed it. Now they're at the bottom. Atlanta United spent a bunch of money on the in the offseason. Expectations were super high. St. Louis, I don't even know if expectations are high, but they do kind of have an expectation to at least make the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
So my question for you guys is, which fall is the hardest? Does that make
Gee,
sense?
I
Which
don't know,
fall is
man.
the hardest? Because Atlanta, again, high expectations,
Yeah.
right? So the fall is hard when you have high expectation with so much money. I know because I'm a Miami Dolphins fan, and
Oh
we
my.
always have that. Yeah, there you go. So uh, Edgar, former champion, the fall is
Oh
hard.
my
So
god,
which
dude.
fall is hard? Because the CF Montreal, we're at the bottom, but the fall isn't so hard because, well, I mean, like I said, I mean, it's nice if we ever make it to playoffs, but we don't expect. I got you guys thinking. I can see like the wheels turning right now. Which
Well, I mean, I'll answer first. In my
Go for it,
opinion,
man.
the fall is hardest for Atlanta. And it's because you guys spent so much and you had so much promise. And you're the stats that everybody talks about when they're saying how much money was spent in the offseason. It was you guys, Austin, maybe Cincinnati, something like that. But you guys were the team that was supposed to bounce back because you spent so much on this huge attacking unit. And now you're 3 points above us in St. Louis in the table in the Supporter Shield at least. So because in the Galaxy, the reason I say they're not the hardest fall is in St. Louis. I've even posited this too. Would you guys take what happened to the Galaxy? And everybody says in a heartbeat, because what it means is you're winning MLS Cup. And then whatever happens after, it's like you're earning a grace period in most fan bases of you brought us a cup. That's the ultimate goal. And so if this happens and you can write some of it off, I'm sure because of injury, I'm sure there's a lot of fans in LA who are saying, oh, if we hadn't had, all these injuries that are happening, if Puig was there, everything would be different, Pack, all these things. Atlanta is, you guys, best I can tell, you guys don't have massive injury concerns. It's just an underperformance and a coach
massive
who's,
underperformance,
yeah.
massive. I mean, I'm sure Henry, you can, or Tyler, you guys can talk about it more, but
For
Well,
hours.
before we let Tyler talk, because I know he's like, "Ah, let me go, man.
eh,
You're good.
As far as LA Galaxy is concerned, I mean, yes. A lot of people say, how can you complain, right? You won an MLS Cup, but to be completely honest, nobody expected LA Galaxy to win an MLS Cup last year. Some of us that have been on the MLS Battered Fans podcast with Danny, we've talked about how he mentions that how much he really was really looking forward to seeing Inter Miami at least make it to MLS Cup and at least fight for that, because that's where all the hype was, and Leo Messi and Inter Miami. And here you look in the West, a lot of people always see as LAC and Seattle as some of the perennial contenders. St. Louis is always in that conversation because they started off so well, and then LA Galaxy kind of snuck up on everyone. They definitely snuck up on us here at NAG because um, we always say, all facts, no feelings, right? But we're following the team and we're like, okay, we're not back. We're not back yet, and they keep winning games. And we're like, we're not back. And some Galaxy fans actually got upset with us, and they're like, how can you say they're not back? You look how they're doing. We're like, because the way that this team performs is like you're not officially back until you lift a cup. And then they win a cup, and I remember like thinking to myself, by the way, I'm like my eyes were streaming, and I was crying, and I was like thinking to myself, oh my god, how do we get to from to this from like just 18 months ago when this team was a complete crater, and it's just an amazing surprise. So everybody was saying we're back, and nobody in the right mind was expecting this team to repeat, but at least be competitive, at least play with some sort of decency, or you're an okay team. But what we saw this year is completely unheard of. It's like bizarre world. It went from like we didn't even get a sense of panic. There's an LAFC podcaster who texts, he messages me, and at one point, I think like 5 games, 6 games into the season, he was like, when do you guys begin to panic? And I'm like, we're not exactly panicking. And then like 2 games later, he's like, are you panicking now? I'm like, oh, no, we're beyond panic. At this point, we're like, we're numb. We're like, what the hell happened?
Yeah.
And it got to the point where like at the end of the San Jose game, which Galaxy lost, I remember I was joking to some people, man, on the way home, I'm not going to listen to my usual metal. I'm just going to listen to the Smiths. And somebody was like, oh, no, don't do that. That's terrible. That's that dark territory. Don't listen to the Smiths. And if you don't know who the Smiths are, that's Morrissey. And man, that music is really depressing. But yeah, no, I just feel like, yes, that MLS Cup does give you a kind of like a little safety net. But
But that what you talk about, Edgar, the numbness you felt, because you said you felt a numbness at some point
yes, I
after
felt
a
a
few games.
numbness.
That's that fall that I'm talking about, right? The fall that's
Ah.
hard. And I'm sure, Henry, you felt I told this to my wife. This is like therapeutic for us, right? There's a therapy session for all of
No,
us. No?
absolutely. And I'll say this because I was chatting with the guys on COTFC Fan TV at the start of the season, and um, I was, they had their show, and I posted on there like, man, I'm really looking forward to this season's Crown and Coke. In case you guys don't know what that is, that's the rivalry between Atlanta and Charlotte. Crown City, right? Charlotte, the Queen City, and Coke, Coca-Cola products from Atlanta, Crown and Coke. And so I was really looking forward to the Crown and Coke. You guys are so loaded. I think one of you two teams is probably going to be fighting for MLS Cup. And then we see Atlanta start and then just fall apart. And God, Tyler, what the hell's going on?
And,
Dude, I don't even know. It's so frustrating. I think like to answer Andy's question real quick. I mean, I agree with like what Matt was saying. It's you go and you expect like Atlanta fans wanted them to spend money to go after, game changers and go after guys that were going to make a difference. And they did. They tried to. And I know I come in here, Henry's in here running his mouth about Miggy, popping off at the mouth, whatever. I get it. Miggy, he's not performed. Nobody on the team has performed the way that they expected. And that's just the crux of the issue. The entire team has been incredibly subpar. I mean, you look at the stats and it's all average to below average. I mean, you've had one clean sheet this year. They're 13th, so right in the middle-ish on expected goals, but then their actual goals are terrible. 19th in shots on target per match. Like it's just Atlanta United right now, as it stands on June 4th, 2025, is a below average, mediocre football team. With the Galaxy, I think the biggest thing with the Galaxy is it was so jarring because, you won the cup and then all of a sudden you can't win a game for months. And that's wild. But at the same time, like the Galaxy have been so up and down. You look at the year before that, and Edgar, you were talking about it, but it was rough then. And then you had a phenomenal season last year. Everything went right for the most part. And then you just drop off. But that's MLS. MLS is such a dumb league to try to predict things in and try to get an idea of like what's going to happen. You really never can consistently, kind of bet on it. But at the end of the day, like with Atlanta United, I mean, it's so mind numbing because forget the money. It's $50 million that they've spent since last summer transfer window. Forget all that. You should be able to get by with half of that, with half of the talent that you have on the team right now, because you have homegrowns, you have, some solid TAM players, you have guys that can contribute and do the job, but nobody's really coming through the way that they need to. And it just feels like a lot of times when they go out on the pitch, whatever starting 11 that Ronnie Dyla puts out, it's just partially broken. They'll have good moments. And to be fair, there have been some better moments over the past 4 or 5 games, but as a whole, like looking at the entire season, it looks like 11 guys at any given moment that don't look like they've played together for much. So yeah, it's a massive fall. It's a massive drop off from the expectations.
So I have a question for you,
He
man.
said there's no safe bet, but there is a safe bet. CF
Huh?
Montreal, man. Yeah, you can always bet that they're not gonna make it past number 7. Sorry, I cut you off, Edgar. I apologize for that.
No, it's I love the banter. No, I was gonna say for anybody who isn't familiar with the Scarves and Spikes podcast and doesn't follow what you guys have to say, or Atlanta United in general, can you explain what happened with Rob Valentino? Why didn't he come back when he had built so much rapport with the players, and he had that fantastic run at the end of the season? And how did you guys end up with Ronnie Dyla? Dyla, right? Dyla.
Ronnie Dyla. Yeah. So basically, it was the reasoning that they gave us was that they wanted a manager with MLS Cup winning experience with a winning record, basically, was what we were told from Garth Lagerwey. And eventually, when Chris Henderson came on, he might have said something about that as well. But the thing is, right, what Rob Valentino did with this team was nothing short of phenomenal. But Garth did want, you know, a more experienced person in that role. And again, Rob Valentino as a head coach, he had 2 stints with this team. One, I believe, before Gonzalo Pineda was named the manager back in 2021, and then this most recent one. And so basically, they wanted someone that had a winning record, and that's Ronnie Dyla. He won MLS Cup back in 2021, and they reasoned, he should be able to come here and do it again. A club that invests much more in its players, a club that we are looking to kind of rebuild from the culture standpoint, down from the bottom all the way to the top. And they saw him as the ideal candidate to bring this team forward. And that's part of the reason why Garth Lagerwey came out and said about a month ago or so that he is safe, that he's the guy that they want to really build around for a long-term project.
Meanwhile, we head up to the frozen north, where you were talking, Andy, about Laurent
It's hot.
Courtois, right?
It's hot.
And oh, I'm sorry, Tyler. The sun came out at Montreal, and Andy over here talking about how hot it is, man. I
Long or
mean,
short?
it's probably like 60 Fahrenheit up there, and this guy's like, I'm dying here.
It's freaking hot.
It's like I always joke around, but I have a lot of friends either live in England or are from England, and they're like, "Oh man, I forget what Celsius it is, but they're like, oh, it's like 75 here. I'm burning up. I'm dying," and I'm like, "That's like what most people down here keep their house at, you know?"
Yeah. So, Andy, you guys had Laurent Courtois, right? And then Donadel steps in, and what happened? Because you kind of broached on that earlier, and all of a sudden it seems like Montreal is like completely adrift, and that's why I said hey, we're not alone here, right? We have Montreal here holding our hand as we sink deeper to the bottom. But what the hell happened?
I mean, well, I mean, as I said, I think it left a lot of fans asking the same question: what happened with Laurent Courtois? Right? I don't think they were given the CF Montreal fans didn't feel like they were given he was given the benefit of the doubt of playing in Montreal, at least some home games, and mind you, during his 5 games that he coached this year, the stars that CF Montreal had signed, the stars per se, one of them from LA Galaxy, Jalen Neal, he was injured, and so Laurent Courtois didn't really get a chance to line him up and see what he could do with his scheme and all that. And Marco Donadel kind of came in and changed the scheme. He went from a back three from what CF Montreal had been playing for the past since I want to say 2021. They had been playing with a back three. He quickly changed it to a back four and then made wingers. And it's just, I mean, transitioning into that Marco Donadel scheme and style has been rough to see. I mean, I'm sure people around the league saw that CF Montreal lost against Toronto FC 6-1 here in Montreal, which
Jesus.
was it. It doesn't even. I mean, I just heard saying with someone Jesus, but it doesn't even begin to explain how that felt for fans being present in Saputo Stadium that day. It was just bizarre world because and then all Marco Donadel could say at the press conference was like, we didn't really have I've only been here a few weeks and I haven't really had a chance to practice with my guys a red card situation, and so that was really like horrible. But it's just been a very weird transitioning phase because even the players that CF Montreal signed over the years don't really have that profile that say fits into the formation that Marco Donadel is trying to fit. So a lot of people are looking forward to this next transfer window for the MLS that's going to open up. I know I kind of went off on the question you were asking, Edgar, as to what happened with Laurent Courtois, as to the transitioning with Marco Donadel. But yeah, a lot of people are still asking because CF Montreal hasn't necessarily gotten better because of the firing of Laurent Courtois. So a lot of people now are saying like, why did you guys fire Laurent Courtois if this team wasn't going to be any better? And actually, Edgar, before Greg Vanney signed his new contract with LA Galaxy, it almost felt like he was in the hot seat, and people were saying, why doesn't Laurent Courtois go to LA Galaxy? Because he did work in the youth academy, in the academy at LA Galaxy, and in the reserve team. And so yeah, so that's pretty much what happened. Uh,
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, by the way, because my God, that is still a hot button topic over here with LA Galaxy fans because, like we were saying earlier, winning an MLS Cup kind of gives you kind of like a little safety net, but then you start to see the team start to be historically bad, and you start to see the stuff that's happening, and people need to point a finger or have like a scapegoat. And I'm trying really hard not to blame Greg Vanney. This is me. I know Bryant and some of the other NAG boys. We all have mixed opinions, but it came to a point where we're all like, you know what? Everything's on fire at this point. Everything's in shambles, and um, we don't see things getting any better. This is after all the players had come back from injury, and things are still bad. And then we had that you were talking about 6-1 losing to Toronto. I mean, we got completely annihilated against Red Bull New York up at Sports Illustrated Stadium. Still getting used to saying that. But yeah, it's 7-0. That is the worst loss in Galaxy history, and this came after they held Kansas City scoreless. I mean, for like most of the game, didn't allow a shot, not even a shot on goal. I mean, not a shot on goal, no shot. They didn't allow the defense even get a shot off, and they still lost the damn game, right? And then they after the New York game, they go to the Philly and they're up 2-0. And you're thinking, okay, this is safe. No, they cough up that lead in the first 5 minutes of the second half, and then I remember I was tweeting to my friends, please, dear God, don't let them lose at the death. And what happens? They lose at the death. So all that stuff rips your heart out. And then you're like, damn it. And you're mad and you're upset. And you look at Greg Vanney and you're like, you know what? I like you, Greg Vanney. I've known him since he was a rookie, by the way, when I used to cover the team back then. So I know he's a nice guy. But at this point, I was like, damn it. They need something else. And the one guy that we've all been talking about for a while, right? Behind closed doors is Jim Curtin. He's available. And I know you Atlanta guys have been talking about him. Tyler, you guys? I know I've heard that. Yes, we approached him. He said no once, And then there's rumors that Atlanta approached him again. What's going on? Is Jim Curtin still the most eligible bachelor out there as far as MLS is concerned?
I think for a lot of teams, Jim Curtin would do really well. I really do. And I'm not saying he wouldn't do well in Atlanta, but there is going to be a breaking in period for Jim Curtin if he ever comes to Atlanta after some of the comments that he made that, like, Atlanta fans, like, there are things that are said in soccer banter between fan bases, right? Like, we get that. That's part of the game. But Atlanta fans have still not gotten over his driver's license comment from a couple of years ago. And so, no, I don't think he would be bad. I just also don't think that Atlanta's players would fit what Jim Curtin would want to do at this point in time. It's hard to judge Jim Curtin because he spent so much time with Philly. He spent so much time working, kind of that famous, infamous, whatever you want to call it, diamond midfield that it was Philly's like bread and butter. And you never really saw him do anything different for the most part. I mean, he would kind of branch off and be pragmatic occasionally, but I mean, you never really saw him deviate too much. So I think it's a little bit of a risk as well because, I mean, you know that his players like him, so you know he can get people on board, but is he capable of doing something different with a different set of players? I think he could be successful, but I don't know that as it stands right now, Atlanta would be the team that would continue to go after him. I think at this point, they've pivoted so hard to another direction with Ronnie Dyla and then bringing in players that they thought or assumed were going to fit his style. I don't know that they could just pivot back even in the next year or two and try to go after a guy like Jim Curtin.
So, fellas, we've been talking about the managers. Let's talk about I kind of talked about it a little bit myself already about Galaxy fans, how Galaxy fans have reacted to everything that's going on over here. It's really strange. It's really, really strange. And just to give you a microcosm of how the Galaxy season has been, whenever a team wins a championship, obviously the team will have like a giveaway, right? They'll have like a championship ring giveaway. So earlier this year, the Galaxy said, "Oh, we're gonna have a MLS Cup 2024 ring giveaway. Be the first. I think it's 10,000 people to show up, and you'll get your ring." Everybody obviously was really excited. A lot of people lined up for hours before the game. I remember I did my usual. I get there like a couple hours before the match. I hang out in one of the supporters areas, and the supporters areas at the stadium, they have their own entrances. So I'm like, let me just line up here and have a beer while I'm waiting. So I'm sitting there and waiting, and when the gates open, I walk in, I get my ring, and I'm in, and no issues for me. Somewhere along the line, things got out of hand, and people who weren't season ticket holders started getting into the season ticket holder line, and they started taking they started jumping in, and they started taking the rings. At one point, one of the areas the fans got really upset. Police stepped in, took the boxes with the championship rings away, and then fans started getting like to the point where we're about to riot, and they had to close the gates on several areas of the stadium, and it was just a mess. People were angry. There were a lot of angry letters. Twitter was blowing up. Galaxy Twitter is something else. It's a beast, and so people were going absolutely crazy. In case you're wondering what it is, it's this monstrosity right here. Just to give you an idea, when they won in 2014, they gave these away. This is the one they gave away this year. It's a beast. It's huge. It's like you could kill somebody with this thing. And so what the team ended up doing afterwards, they put out an apology.
That's why they took them away. They gave you brass knuckles.
Yeah, right?
You leave like the crest on their forehead or something.
Yeah, look at this beast.
Sorry,
man. Look
Edgar.
at this thing.
See, Montreal fans can't relate to that kind of stuff. Can't relate, like.
Let me put these babies on, like I'm Thanos.
You get some sad music for Andy.
I have a wedding ring, and that's probably the only ring I'll get.
He's only 4 of them right here.
You got the infinity rings.
It's heavier. It's heavier than any ring you have right now. I can tell you that.
But the sad thing was that it was supposed to be a moment of celebration, and it turned out to be this absolute utter mess that we've never seen at the stadium. That's what the season's been like. It's supposed to be a season we're supposed to celebrate an MLS Cup, and it's just been complete and utter mess. And the fans don't know how to feel. Some of them have given up on the team, and I don't mean like they turn their backs on the team. I'm just talking like, oh, that's it, it's over. In my case, I have no hopes for a playoff. I'm just happy to be there with my friends, enjoy the whole social aspect of being there at the game and enjoying that. And then the game is a bonus. And if they win, oh yeah. And if they lose, oh well, it's just what's been going on anyway. What about you guys? Andy, let's start with you because I know you got to head out soon, but Montreal fans, right? What I know about Montreal fans, I know you guys are very passionate, and I know about the bell. I always hear the bell. And I'm like, yeah, the bell's kind of cool, right? But how are fans been reacting? Because there are times I look at the highlights and it looks like the stadium is like half full, and then other times it looks really empty. What's been the reaction from fans to this horrible season?
I mean, you talked about it, right? The Twitter feed of LA Galaxy is a beast in itself. The CF Montreal Twitter is a whole different world, and it's in French and English and any language you want. But they keep just destroying the team. I mean, the fans are obviously very negative, very pessimistic, but it's also at the same time like there's two phases to it, right? Because it's very easy for CF Montreal to be negative now because of of historically how bad this team can be at times, but it also doesn't really like give a chance for like which the team I think in my personal opinion is trying to do is to try to get things right, and the president has come out saying that they want to try to do things right and they're trying to find the right structure. As I mentioned earlier in the show, Joey Saputo and his kids are coming back to be like more in control of the team. It looks like things are going in the right direction, but the fans are, if you're asking from a fan's perspective, they're very very negative about the season, and they're not happy about what happened, and they're disappointed at how they handled the whole Laurent Courtois situation, and that things haven't improved in since Marco Donadel has taken over. As far as the stadium being full, the weather also hasn't been very good. I don't know if you guys have ever visited Montreal. It's perfectly fine if you didn't, but Montreal during the summer is beautiful. It's just sunny. It's there's activities left and right. There's music festivals and all that. And what's the beauty about during the summer is that, like I said, today is very nice and hot. It's almost like people have been in their caves and they just come out to like discover the world. And there's just and the reason why I mentioned this example is because CF Montreal is part of that world that they're discovering, where they say like they went to this party here, they went to this barbecue there, this baptism, whatever it is that they had to do. And at night at 7 p.m., do you want to go watch a soccer game? Yeah, it's super nice and sunny. Let's keep outside and let's go watch. There's a soccer game. The tickets are not too expensive. They really aren't. And they're in Canadian dollars. Um, so in that sense, it's I think over time as the weather gets better, you'll start seeing more fans. But it's not going to be the hardcore fans. It's not going to be the ones that follow day to day, the ones that are well aware of every transaction, every news that is coming out. It might be just the fans that again, they have nothing better to do and it's a cheap ticket, and or maybe somebody gave it to them, their job, radio, TV, whatever, gave them tickets. They'll be there with their families and their kids, and they'll enjoy the moment. Saputo Stadium is a very nice stadium. Again, I don't know if you guys have ever visited. If you ever do get a chance to go to a CF Montreal game, even if it's for the opposing team, it's a very nice stadium. It's very personal. It's very European. It's not a huge stadium, and I think it holds around 15,000 or 16,000. And it's a very nice experience. Every time people go, they feel very close to the field. There's really no seat in the stadium that you can say like I can't really see the game or it's far. It all feels very personal. So I think with the weather and hopefully in signings in the next transfer window, as I mentioned, it can bring some hype back to the team. But like I said, those are the fans that you're going to be seeing.
Okay, Scarps and Spikes guys. Henry, this one goes to you. Um, how are supporters reacting? You guys have mentioned that the Benz hasn't been as packed as it has been obviously in the past. There's fans that obviously will be turned off by a team that isn't playing that well. But NBA season is over. NFL isn't here yet, and MLB is there. But there's that option, right, for fans where they want to spend their sports money. How are fans reacting to Atlanta? And do you think that they feel encouraged to attend a match as the season progresses?
I think that's an interesting question because definitely coming into the season, I think the hype was around the Miggy return, and especially that home opener where we won in very dramatic fashion, a 4-3 win, kind of towards the end. Um, that made it a very nice homecoming for Miggy. The stadium was packed because they wanted to see him, and that was a very nice occasion. And obviously, as the results kind of started trending downwards, you know, people started kind of trickling out, especially when we started that 8-game winless streak, and people were like, "Okay, we're back to the same stuff, right?" So there's nothing really the same, or well, we're not seeing the product that we were sold on this off season, right? And the attendance started going down, and then one of the games that we recently had was a midweek game. That obviously brings an extra challenge because there's people that you know uh, people work, and or you have school or other stuff that you have to go to, and you obviously a lot of people can't really go to these midweek games. And even then, I think announced attendance for that one, correct me if I'm wrong, Tyler, was around like 39,000, something like that.
Yeah.
um,
Uh, Again, announced attendance.
Announced attendance, which is different from
I love
butts
that.
and seats.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
But
uh,
I will say this really quick. It is remarkable in a bad sense, because normally Atlanta's announced attendance on average is around 42 and a half. So, and that's even on Wednesday games. So for it to drop below 40 is it's pretty sad.
and you see it on TV too, right? Because it's a stadium that at its max capacity holds like 70,000 something folks, and then even with the top section like cordoned off, it's for like 50-ish thousand people max. So it's unfortunate when you see all the empty seats. But still, the supporters groups, they come out for every single game, and I gotta give them props because even though the team isn't a contender right now, they're still out there. They're still throwing their tailgates before every single game, and that place is always rocking, man. It's right next to the stadium. They got the vibes. They got everything going on, and they keep they stay on their feet for 90 minutes, and they're chanting, and you always hear them, even if the team's down, even if things aren't going well, they're still out there putting the energy in the stadium. And so I give them mad props for that, and for sticking around even though the season really hasn't gone to plan.
And that is one of the most beautiful things about our sport, right? Because and other fan bases and other sports, right? Unless you're like a real hardcore fan, right? You show up, like with your ticket, you watch the match or the game, and then you head home. I know the NFL has tailgates, and there's less games in the season, and people, will tailgate hard before a match or a game, right? And then they'll head home after. But in MLS, it's kind of like the NFL, I guess. You get to build like these really good, strong, long-lasting friendships that begin as like, oh, we cheer for the same team. And I can give you an example. In my case, I met some friends there many, many years ago when I became a season ticket holder, almost 20 years now. And they go from being friends to really good friends to like, hey, come over and let's watch the game. To also, one of their sons is the ring bearer at my wedding. And then we're there, they feel like family, and that's one of the wonderful things about it, right? And even in this horrible season with LA Galaxy, um, I should. That's one of the things people say to me. Why are you showing up so early? I'm like, well, because in addition to the game, I get to hang out, with these friends, right? And we get to share in this experience. And so when they lose, it doesn't feel so terrible because it's a shared experience, and you get to talk about it after the game, and you kind of vent before you head home. Um, and it's kind of like what we have right here, right now, right? We're all here together. We're here at the bottom of the league, and we kind of we're venting about about our teams. So, guys, what hope do we have that things will get better? We were talking. I was talking Tyler about how like the wooden spoon that Galaxy's currently holding on to is like Thor's hammer, right? Who wants to take it next? Do you guys want it, Andy? Do you guys
No.
want it? Well, what hope do we have, right, for the rest of the season? And I'll let Andy go first. What hope do you see that Montreal has to improve for the rest of the season so you can leave today with a smile and say, hey, you know what? I feel better after this.
I mean, there's got to be two things to it, right? There's got to be that that CF Montreal finds a way to overcome the 1-0 deficit to the Canadian champion to Forge FC in the Canadian Championship here in Montreal in Stade Saputo. I believe that's in July, and that the second transfer window brings some fruitful players and gets rid of some of the players that have clearly checked out. I'm sure in Atlanta that you've seen this, and in LA Galaxy you've seen this. At this point of the season, boys, there are some people that have some players that have checked out. Forget about the fans, Edgar. You spoke about the fans. You spoke about people, fans not showing up to the stadium. There are some players not showing up to the stadium on game night.
Royce.
And Edgar, we can laugh all day, but you just mentioned the name that I don't watch every day. I don't watch every LA Galaxy game, and I know how big of a name he is. And if you have a player such as Marco Royce or a Miguel Almiron or any other player in Atlanta United that is clear that they're just checking out. And like I said, I was in the CF Montreal practice today, and in practice, you see exactly what you see in the game. And I don't mean the schemes, the tactics, the practice. Forget that. I'm talking about the attitude that they bring to practice. The one where they're maybe missing that extra pass or not showing that intensity when doing the drill or whatever. You know these players are out, and that's the biggest disappointment. So when you ask me like what's the thing that would leave me with a smile is getting rid of those players. Get rid for their good. Now forget about CF Montreal for the good of those players, right? Those players that they can just go to LA Galaxy or go to Atlanta United or go to or go to Toronto FC, wherever they want to
Why would
go.
you wish that on us?
Yeah, because LA Galaxy wins as opposed to CF Montreal, right? So look, I tweeted out today. He was with LAFC before, I think LA Galaxy. I might be wrong. Mahalo Poku. He was with LAFC, I believe.
LAFC.
And he came here with a big price tag, and he has I don't know how many games. I think he's played like 2 games, including the Canadian Championship this season. Complete flop. Complete flop. And even with the change of scheme where he's a natural winger, has not been able to crack the starting lineup. This is obviously a player that I saw in practice today. He looks like he's playing in right now in preseason, and in preseason, the practices in preseason where he's still trying to find his feet, and that's not normal in the month of June in MLS. So what will make me happy is turn over the roster and really, and I don't mean like everybody. I mean the players that clearly are out of it. They don't believe in this project. They don't believe in themselves with that jersey, and find players that are willing to put up with the terribleness that MLS is when it comes to traveling and all that. So yeah, that's my answer to that.
Okay, guys, Scarves and Spikes, you guys are up. Both of you can answer this question. What hope does Atlanta have for the rest of the season? I know you guys went on that little winning streak there, a couple matches, and we almost kicked you out of the Wooden Spoon Clubhouse. But you guys said no. We're coming back. We're coming back. So what's it gonna take for Atlanta to improve? And how can you leave this conversation tonight with a smile?
Man, I think at the end of the day, sometimes you just have to look at it from a fan perspective. From a fan perspective, you just have to look at it that a day inside your stadium or at home with a beer or whatever, watching your team play is still better, no matter how bad they are, than being at work or whatever other bullcrap the world has going on at the time. And that's just how you have to look at it. I don't know, man. Look, I don't want all of us to be sitting here having a conversation about our teams being in the wooden spoon race, or as Tommy would say on our show, the wooden spork race, because I mean, while the Galaxy, you're holding on to that wooden spoon,
Hell
right
yeah.
above that's the wooden spork, and it's anybody's game for sure. I don't know, man. I agree, like with what Andy was saying. I think Atlanta is a team just like a handful of these others that have players that appear to be checked out. And I've said it on our show a million times. I'm never going to second guess any soccer player's motivation, what they have going on in their own life, any of that, because we don't know. We go to training, we see them, week in and week out and everything else, but you never know what somebody has going on in their life. So just because they look like they've checked out, maybe they haven't. Maybe they're just having a rough go of it, and it could be something as simple as they just need a change of scenery. They need to move on somewhere else. What's frustrating, maybe from a purely Atlanta perspective, and like Andy was kind of hitting on it too, is just when you have players that have so much hype that come to your team and you feel like, all right, well, this is the flash that we need. This is that whatever. This is that thing that we need to kind of get going. And then it just doesn't happen. It's demoralizing for not just the players, but obviously the fans as well. And so, I mean, you just, man, I don't know. I guess we'll go back to the Ted Lasso quote. It's the hope that kills you. But again, I would much rather be watching soccer than dealing with half the bull crap that's going on in the world nowadays. So you just enjoy it for what it is. It's a game and it's MLS. And you really never know what's going to happen in MLS.
I can't believe we're quoting Ted Lasso in this podcast. This is
That's where we're at.
This is the state of things, man.
fantastic. This is great. We're doing
you know
well.
Andy, Tyler, you guys came in a little later. I began by quoting T.S. Eliot, man, and now we're quoting Ted Lasso. Okay, so we went from that to
We're on a
that.
roll.
Yeah, we're on a roll, man.
I absolutely love Ted Lasso, but sometimes you want to, especially in these kind of teams, you want to bring a Ted Lasso and just like kind of place him in the locker room to like have a motivation. And then when it comes to tactics, just take him out.
I feel like Atlanta needs a lead Tasso at this moment.
A lead Tasso.
I need somebody to go in there and just go ham on everybody.
Next level.
Dallas kind of acted like that a little bit, to be fair, calling them soft and everything. So he's kind of been a little bit of that. Now we need a little bit of the Ted Lasso effect, teach him some trick plays.
Yeah, we have something similar at that happened right before the last match. Actually, there's a gentleman named Don Raul. We call him Don Raul. He's been the team's equipment manager since 1996. Wonderful man. And let me tell you, when I was covering the team way back in 1998, I wanted to get myself my hands on an authentic player issue jersey because I was like, I don't want a replica. I want like a player issue jersey, and I didn't know where to buy one, so I went up to him when I was in the locker room, and I said, Raul, where can I buy a player issue jersey? Tell me how much it costs. And he was like, he just winked at me, and he kind of like went away. And I was interviewing a player, and then he told me to open up my bag. I had like a little satchel bag, and then he stuck a jersey into my bag. He kind of winked at me and just walked away quietly, and he gave me a jersey. So he's an amazing person. Everybody loves him here, and when he speaks in his broken English, everybody listens. And before this match, he actually went on and he joined the players in their huddle, and he's like, "You better fucking win, is this, stop fucking, losing. You better you guys are the champions. Act like champions. Fucking win." And they went and they won. So I don't know, man. I don't know if it was that. I don't know if it was me bringing my son to the game. My son, he just turned 5. I brought him to 5 games before that. They never lost a game when I bring him, and I brought him, and they won. So I don't know. It took a bunch of stuff, I guess. All this, and so I left the game feeling good, even though the team's in last. And I want you guys to leave tonight's conversation feeling good. Henry, how is the season gonna go for Atlanta to a point where you're like you feel good about things, from where you are right now, and you're gonna be like, you know what, I feel good about this.
As far as kind of where this season goes, I think there's really only you can only really go up, and I know that's not really true. There are a few places below us, but I would like to think that there is only going up from here. Granted, we do have that away stretch, but I'm going to choose to ignore that right now because I'm already sad enough without thinking about it. Yeah, I think we're starting to see some of this team come together the way that we thought it would at the beginning, where Ronnie Dial is instilling his tactical identity on some more of this team, and we're starting to see them actually pull off things that we expect good teams to do. I talked about this on our show just a couple hours ago, but the team actually has actually started playing more through balls in games, right? They hadn't been playing that many. They'd been focusing more kind of on crosses and some other stuff, but through balls, which was what we were sold on, that wasn't happening. And in the last game, they played 4 through balls. They lost, but they played 4 through balls, which encourages me because it looks like they're doing the right things now, and they're starting to do that a little bit more, get some more dangerous opportunities. You're a little unlucky you're not scoring them, but they're making good things happen. And so I feel like, there is a path up from here. I feel like with the summer, uh, you know, Chris Henderson is one of the best, most knowledgeable soccer executives in the league. He worked wonders at Seattle. He worked wonders at Miami, and I trust that he's going to do the same thing here with Atlanta. This is kind of the first true window that he's had, because in the last window he was just hired, right? And he was brought on for the DP signings and such like that. And he pulled highway robbery, getting Mateus Clich on a non-DP deal from DC. That was awesome. Now he's going to have a whole window where he's had time to analyze, to look at some of his targets, to see what this team really needs. And with him at the helm, between him and Garth, I trust a lot that whatever signings that they make in the summer are going to really help this team in the last, 7, 8 games of the season after that summer transfer window opens. So I'm really looking forward to it. And also the fact that Atlanta just seems to be better in that final stretch, especially the last few seasons. They've kind of surprised us with how much they can resurrect after the summer transfer window. And so we'll see. But I coincide. I'm going to agree with Tyler and say, like, yeah, I would much rather be at an Atlanta United game, even if they suck, than dealing with other crap in the world or, literally anything else. And so I'm going to be happy with Atlanta, and I'm going to be a little bit more optimistic than I have been before. I think that they can certainly make something better of this season. But again, that's up to the players. That's up to what this club does. And pressure's on. I think that they can make a serious turnaround.
And it looks like we lost our two good friends. By the way, I want to say thank you very much to Matt Baker, who came in from Flyover Footy. Um, if anybody is ever interested in finding everybody here is fantastic at what they do. Like, I love all the podcasters that came on here. You guys make this league so much more better than just sitting there and watching the matches, because you get to listen to all this MLS talk. And I'm an MLS sicko, and I can't get enough of it. I go walk my dog, and I know I'm going to be listening to either Scarves and Spikes, COTFC Fan TV, to the guys from Montreal, to our buddies up in Columbus. I mean, there's so much to listen to, right? And it just it fills my evenings with all this great knowledge about our wonderful league. Um, Before he left, Matt did have some things he wanted to share, and I'll share them with you right now. He said, "Hey, the vibes here in St. Louis are still kind of are unusually high." He says because our new caretaker David Critchley is saying all the right things. He won his first game. We're getting healthier, and there's a crazy amount of optimism for where we are in the table. And so there's still hope there in St. Louis. Montreal sounds like they're just happy that the sun came out, and there's some hope there as well. And I know Atlanta, you guys have so much talent. I'm pretty sure your season is going to turn around. I know you guys were saying, oh, the LA Galaxy is going to turn things around. Well, we turned it around, like 16 matches in, 17 matches in. So there's always hope, right? When Pandora opened up her box and all these evils got loosed into the world, there was one left there, and that was hope. And hope is the one thing, it's the last thing that you can lose. Um, but guys, before we get going, anybody who's not familiar with Scarves and Spikes, can you please shout out your socials and where people can follow you guys for wonderful MLS talk?
Yeah, we're pretty much Scarves and Spikes anywhere on any of the social medias, YouTube. We always appreciate the subscriptions and all that good stuff. The only weird one is Twitter, Scarves the letter N Spikes. But yeah, I mean, and then of course, scarvesandspikes.com. We got the website and everything. Y'all come hang out with us next week. We're doing a pseudo Hot Ones challenge with the local
Oh
Atlanta
my
hot sauce
god.
company. So we're gonna have fun with that.
Oh yeah,
We're
that's good.
supposed to do that too, remember?
I know we got to set that up.
Yeah. Henry, anybody? Oh yeah, you guys put out your your private socials. I mean, as far as Corpus and Spikes is concerned as well, right?
Yeah, mine's just at ATL Pilgrim pretty much everywhere.
And I'm pretty much just at HA Higita everywhere as well. Mostly Twitter and Blue Sky.
Yeah, and for anybody who's curious about Matt Baker and the Flyover Footy, you guys can follow Matt at Matt Baker STL, and just look for Flyover Footy with a Y on Twitter and Blue Sky as well. For Andy from Montreal, the podcast is called The Ball Is Round Montreal. You guys can follow them at TBIR Montreal, and you get to learn a little bit of French too along the way. Um, and for anybody who's following us that's not familiar with us, we are News Across the Galaxy. My name is Edgar. I've been covering MLS since 1997 and U.S. soccer, and I love MLS. I feel a deep sense of pride for it, and I always do my best to try to be a caretaker for the league and, as a journalist and as a creator. And my bros and News Across the Galaxy, I really appreciate them for supporting me, for giving me this opportunity to have this platform. So, guys, tonight when you go back to your normal lives, have a big smile. Things are going to be better, and at some point, especially you guys on Scarves and Spikes, we're all going to be together sitting at that Waffle House. We're always talking about drowning our sorrows in a big stack of waffles, and and Sydney's going to be nearby, snoring, and we're going to be pouring syrup on a sleeping Tommy, and everything will be good with the world, right?
It'll all be
Fixing Tommy's
perfect.
hash browns because he doesn't know how to order them.
Yep. Poor guy.
Exactly. Oh man. So from me and Bryant and the rest of the News Across the Galaxy crew, we thank you once again for joining us tonight. A huge thanks to all our good friends that feel like family for being with us here tonight. It was a pleasure to have you guys on. And we wish you well for the remainder of the season, except for Matt, because that's our next match. Sorry, Matt. And as we always say on here, keep on nagging and Wu-Tang for life. Let's go.